Hey, this is Sam with TurnOneMagic, and we are back with another 3.0 Q Class deck tech. And even the last time I said that we're gonna not try to look at aggro decks because they're kind of black and white, being that this is meant for beginners, for newer players, for people who may have zero knowledge on Cube and what's available as an option. I would feel remiss not going over what is I would consider one of the benchmarks, stalwarts. I don't really know what the word is to include it here, but grab your thesaurus out. Whatever's the hardcore, always there archetype known as mono red, sometimes splashing white or black. That's what we're looking at today. If that was painful and cringeworthy, I'm sorry. It felt pretty cringeworthy while I was saying it. Regardless, though, this is what we're looking at. And the concept of the deck is pretty basic. You have a low curve, all ones and twos here, and anything that is in the deck is trying to either attack or do damage in a different way. If it isn't, it's probably in there for some ridiculous reason, like as in it's too ridiculously good not to include, like splashing Ancestral Recall or Time Walk or something like that, or it's a land or etc, etc, etc. So we're going to look at this specific example today and go over some of the key components. First being the actual curve itself. So we have a number of 1-drops, and that includes a number of burn spells, including Chain Lightning, Lightning Bolt. That's a really good place to start. Being that this is a 3-0 deck, we know that it won the draft that it was in, and having both of the 3 damage, 1 mana spells is huge for that. Even Chain Lightning being a sorcerer speed spell, technically, maybe absolutely being strictly worse than Lightning Bolt, it's really great to have both of those, because you have 2 options. It's a really efficient way to do damage in these decks. But even beyond that, they have Firebolt in here, they have Boros Charm, not a Braid, but Lightning Strike, Ankh of Mishra, Vortex, which we'll go over again later, and Char, and Fire Confluence, and Fire Blast. There's a lot of burn in this deck. There's only 11 creatures, and that doesn't include Elspeth or Smuggler's Copter, and that's a lower count than you would see in a number of mid-range decks maybe, or something like that, some kind of green-based deck perhaps, but you don't want to overload on your creatures. You really want to diversify your threats when you can in these decks. When all your damage is coming out of your 2 power 1-drops or your 2-drops or whatever it may be, and then they wrath your board away, or they just remove them as they go along, or they just play things that you can't attack through, then you're done. That's it. But when you have something like a massive amount of burn to push through with for that last 4 to 10 damage, that's great. On top of that, they have both of the manlands too, which is awesome. Both Mutavault and Reach's Factory. And by both, I mean the 2 easier to cast for this deck if we're not looking at Needle Spires, which I'd probably play, but it would be something I would struggle with for a while, being that a tap land is actually a huge consideration for this deck. Also, we can't ignore Black Lotus here. Black Lotus being the one card that probably goes in every deck you could possibly imagine. Especially this one too. And even though you're not landing something technically sick disgusting, you're going to be able to follow up with all your spells anyways afterwards. If you can just blast out a Elspeth or a Sulfuric Vortex or just play 3 1-drops in turn 1, it's going to be really tough for most openings for your opponent to be able to strike back if you're not drawing poorly or whatever it may be. There's also Chromox in here. Chromox is actually a great aggro quote-unquote land. And this deck is running virtually 16 lands. It only says 14 here. Technically, you can even say 15 too, which actually kind of works considering we only have 4 spells that cost 3 or more. We're going to go over those in just a second as well. But Chromox is great because it acts as a land, and even though you're not drawing extra lands, or you don't really have a lot of card advantage in this deck, you know, you're not going into Wheel of Fortune or Time Twister or anything like that, you're still having an explosive start for the deck that probably can use explosive starts the best consistently no matter what they have in their hand. You know, something like Tinker may be able to have a better start, getting a Sphinx of the Steel Wind or a Mirror Battlesphere, etc., etc., etc. would do really good against a number of decks, but usually with any configuration outside of really terribly awful hands, whatever you're going to Black Lotus out on that first turn is probably going to be disgusting. And sometimes this will be a 15 land deck too, because Wasteland is here, and that's going to be a spell a real percentage of the time. But I like that though, because as we said beforehand, there's only 4 spells that cost 3 or more. One is the best possible spell you could have in Sulfuric Vortex. There's Char, which is, you know, is pretty decent. Fiery Confluence, which is amazing as a curve chopper. There's 6 damage, or you can Wrath Away if you're somehow behind, or you can You can destroy a number of artifacts with amount of damage, really good. And then we have Elspeth. And Elspeth is a little tougher, but it's not impossible. So we're going to say that Chrome Moxers does not cast Elspeth because you're probably, most of the time, not going to put Boros Charm or Selfless Spirit on it just because Magic is a game of variance. So you have for 1, 2, 3, 4, for 4 white symbols, you have 1, I'll count this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 6 for 4. It's not bad, but it's not great either because you don't really have, well, one of them is Black Lotus, so that's something to really consider, but beyond that too, you don't have a lot of lands. If you have 2 mountains as your opening hand in Elspeth, you might need to ship that back because your Elspeth is just absolutely useless. Now, that's probably a reach, but it's really, really something to consider. One of the most important aspects of Cube is to be able to cast your spells. Because everyone has powerful spells. You know what you put into your cube, it's always strong, it's always good, unless you have no idea what you're doing. And even then, it's kind of one of those things where if you just put like the local bombs of limited, if you just read online and copy a list, you're going to be always facing against good cards. Maybe not good decks in that kind of sense, considering the atmosphere, but you're always going against good cards. So, in a situation where even something like Restoration Angel, right, or something worse like Seer of the Way, though maybe not Seer of the Way, we'll use Restoration Angel here. Something like Restoration Angel, right? I only need to get the 1 planes by turn 4 to get that Restoration Angel out. Is it worse than Elspeth? I'd say probably some percentage of the time it is. I'm not going to say majority. I think Elspeth is probably better in this deck due to the amount of damage she pushes through, but she needs to land first, and that's a huge consideration. Now, granted, again, it's not impossible. This deck may have not even drawn Elspeth or just may have no problem, and if you have Elspeth and Black Lotus in your opening hand, it's going to be really tough for most decks to beat you, but that is something to consider. Otherwise, considering what is in this pool, I really like this deck quite a bit. This might have been a deck I drafted, actually, because of the way it's laid out, and I know that I'm always pretty stupid in having these selected over here. But, yeah, if you have any suggestions, if you disagree with my comments, just let me know in the comment section. Like and subscribe as well. Thanks for watching. You're the best. I love you. I had a hard time getting to this point, but it's been a while, you and me, and I was hoping that you take my hand in marriage. It's a hard question to ask, but really appreciate the answer by the end of the night. Okay, thanks, bye.